Hello, Logan and Apps here again for another review. This time we're here for Wolfenstein II, the new Colossus. Apps, how you doing?
Good, thanks you.
Yeah, good, thanks. Good, yeah. Okay, again, we'll get straight into it. If you want to chuck your cards on the table and give us a rundown of the game.
Yeah, so I guess cards on the table in this instance. I played Wolfenstein, the New Order, which was like the reboot, stroke sequel that Machine Games had done when they took over this franchise, and I gave it a bin it rating. Utterly disgusted with the first entry that they put out.
Didn't enjoy it, did you?
No, I didn't. I did not enjoy it. I then picked up the standalone. Wolfenstein: The New Blood, or was it the Old Blood? It's called the Old Blood, sorry. And preferred that a little bit more. Kind of got into it a little bit more and gave it a bronze rating. So it was on the way up and improving. And the new Colossus, I thought, well, it's number two. It's got decent reviews. Let's give them one more chance to prove their worth. So that's kind of like my history with it. Wolfenstein 2 is a first person shooter. It's action orientated. It's set in an alternative history where the Nazis won the Second World War. You take control of William B.J. Blazkowicz, or Terror Billy as he's known by the Nazis, and in this case you're essentially trying to boot up and start a revolution, to eventually overthrow the Nazis. So it's set up quite quickly out the gate, and that's the basis for the game.
Okay, so we've kind of got a little insight into the story there. So you're essentially going through, presumably, as you say, trying to get together a revolution and kick off this this revolution. Then, is there anything else that you think is important there? Or is that just basically the gist of it? It's just literally that one storyline.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. That's a very generalisation of it. There's a lot more going on there. So I mean, obviously that's the kind of key aim of the game throughout it. That's what you're working towards. But the story kind of looks at BJ's child life and when he was a bit younger, and you get a little bit more about him as a character. And I felt like some of the complaints that I had about the first one was that I didn't really know who BJ Blazkowicz was. I was like, who is this guy? And in this game, it has flashbacks that you visit and play through, and you can
Rich backstory.
Yeah, and it definitely sets the table far more effectively in my view than what the first one did. Definitely good in that sense. So there's a few problems I had with the pacing of the story, like how it cuts certain bits out and you're suddenly just there. Like you'll be talking in the submarine, which is where like the base of operations is for the revolution, and they say, oh, we've got to go and do this and then this, and the first bit it might just cut to them already completed it and you're on to the second bit. It's really strange. Like if you've got to disguise yourself as someone, I would have liked the opportunity to go to that location, find the target, get kill them or incapacitate them, disguise myself, then go to it. But it kind of just cuts to the point where you've got the costume and then you're on, and he's sort of walking out the building smiling. There's a little bit, in a sense like that, the actual structure sometimes was a little bit abrupt. But generally, it's a good story. There's some great moments in it. The characters on, like your allies that you meet and throughout the game are interesting. You can, as you're walking around your base of operations between the main missions, you get a bit of time to yourself there. You get to know these people and you get to see their conflicts. If you stand around and talk to them or watch them enough, you kind of get to know them a lot better. So it gives you a little bit more skin in the game, I guess. Overall, for a first-person shooter, it's decent. It's good.
No, that's good. It sounds good stuff. So what does it look like? How's it presented? Is it, a step up in graphics? Is it more what you expected?
I think it's definitely a step up because the New Order was, again, available on the older consoles as well. So it was on PS3 and Xbox 360 as well as the current gen stuff. So it definitely is a step up in that area of just pure graphical power. Frame rate's rock solid. And they've kind of introduced some new, like, more visual effects, like bloom lighting, which kind of makes it look a lot more realistic. It makes it difficult to see sometimes, but it's definitely an improvement here. And it's one complaint you could have is that it's a little bit, the colour palette's a little bit dark and dreary, but you are living in a post-Nazi victory world, so it kind of fits the tone. It isn't a fun place to be around. So let's not pretend it's not. Let's pretend it should be.
So how does the game structure? Is there elements of it that are open world and then some of it becomes more linear, or is it solely a linear game that you go through, progress, and complete?
Yeah, it's pretty much a linear game. So you'll go onto a mission, and then within that environment, it gives you options on how to tackle a certain conflict. So there's normally more than one or two ways to do a section. There's not necessarily a branching path. You still lead to Z where you're trying to get to, but your method of getting there might be different because the level design is actually quite clever. So if you prefer a more stealthy approach, there's lots of nooks and crannies for you to kind of use and take advantage of and take people out slowly. And after you've finished a mission, you're then normally taken back to the submarine, which I mentioned earlier, which is like your base of operations. And in there, you get a bit of time just to chill out. There's side missions on the boat that you can optionally do. After a certain amount of time, you unlock optional side missions where you can take the submarine to a location to take out like what they call an Uber commander. So an Uber commander is essentially a high-ranking Nazi official, and you can do them as side quests and get rewards and things like that. So it's this little bit. It's not just straight telling you've got to go here, 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 and then you're stuck in that. You do get a little bit of freedom over, taking a step back from the story if you want to. But once you're in the levels, obviously you're working towards a very singular point.
Yeah, that's understandable. One thing I wanted to ask you, actually, one of your criticisms, if you like, I think, of the original game was that it was a bit. It gave you dual machine guns, for example, and then just didn't really give you the chance to use them. So did you find that in this one, or do you think it was a little bit, it structured that a little bit better? It didn't give you this sort of impression that it wanted you to go out and blow everyone's heads off? Or
No, I felt like this one definitely catered towards that playthrough a little bit better. I certainly didn't have the same amount of ammo problems that I had in the first one, where I was just forced to like hide in the shadows for a while. So yeah, I felt like if you wanted to do that, it's tough because you're essentially, encouraging 20 people to know your location and fire upon you. But the option felt much more viable this time, and it wasn't the case of. On the first one, I felt like if I triggered an alarm before a certain point, I had no hope of getting through it. In Wolfenstein II, I always felt equipped enough to get through those scrapes and and take out the enemies and clear it down. So definitely an improvement on that front, I'd say.
that's good to hear. So do you feel overall then that the game controls well? You got good ADS, things like that.
Yeah, I think it's actually deceivingly quick. Like BJ can move very quickly, so it's in your best interest to move where you can and not stay in one spot too long. And the way you move him was obviously the standard sort of control mechanism you've come to know for a first-person shooter. Gunplay is savage. It really feels impactful. Like you just feel like you're really pumping these Nazi bastards full of lead. So controls a thumb up. One thing that is a little bit of a downer as well is I mentioned that BJ is quite quick, but he's not very good at grabbing on things, and this is a pet peeve of mine when they don't get a hand on it. So you'll be jumping at something that looks fairly easy. Sometimes he'll get a hand on it and climb up, and other times he'll just hit it and fall down, and that can be quite destructive when you're getting chased or you're trying to get into a higher area for better cover. It can basically end the run. So he's not as bright as I'd like him to be. Just get a hand on it and get up there. Yeah. It can feel a bit clunky at times, and it's what makes it worse is because it kind of deceives you into thinking because he's quite light on his feet. You think, oh, well, he can't free run, but he can climb up things, and it's just not quite as good as it should be. It's not as refined as what I'd like.
Yeah, I do know that's one of your things. Get a hand on it is
just get a hand on it. It's all
many times over the years.
If it's on your screen, it's lower than your gun. Get a hand on it. Like the ledge is lower than the gun, they should be putting hands on that and climbing up. I don't know what they're doing.
There was one game specifically, we digress, but I remember there's one game, I can't remember exactly what it is, but you used to really get up your nose. It didn't have a clamber mechanic.
No, yeah. Well, the old Halos didn't until Halo 4, or maybe even Halo 5. I think it's Halo 5 actually. That definitely.
Which was also inconsistent at times.
Yeah, Destiny 1 didn't have it. That annoyed me. Destiny 2 does have it, but I feel like it's inconsistent. So get these clambering right. Titanfall had it on a lockdown 3 years ago. Why aren't we copying that? If it was near there, it got a hand on it. You knew you was getting a hand on it and getting up on it. So sort that out.
There you go. So what's the voice acting like? I presume lots of Nazi speaking and whatnot.
Yeah, lots of Nazi bastards speaking in German. But the main kind of people you interact with around the boats are well acted. The soundtrack's really good actually. Like when the action kicks in, it's got these loud it fits the tone of when things are kicking off, and it pulls back the music in moments where it's a little bit quieter. So voice acting's great, adds to the story. Soundtrack's great. Sound of the guns is superb as well. It feels just like it's devastating people like it should do.
That's good stuff. So how much did you pay for this game? Is it good value? Did you put a lot of time into it?
Yeah, I think I paid £20 for it of the UK variety. It's on sale. It seems like it's on or around that price a lot of the time. I don't think it's commercially done very well, which is a bit of a shame. And I think I spent about 14 hours playing through the campaign. That was without doing much of the optional stuff, the optional Uber Commander missions. I didn't do any of those, I don't think, on my first run through. Maybe one. It's about 14 hours. I think that's about right for a single player game to play through. And you've got the added bonus if you want to. There is a decision from the first game that you can carry over or decide again in this game that changes one of the characters that's kind of in and around your boat. So if you wanted a different story or different dialogue options and things like that, you could potentially play for it twice just to get to see what happens with character A and character B.
All right, that's quite interesting. Good little bit of variety there. So what are your closing thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think it's a great action game, great first-person game. There's lots of things on the surface of it. It looks like a very generic kind of meathead blow through this, but story-wise, it's definitely got some very, very interesting themes to play through. There's a lot more depth to things like your weapon upgrades that you can pick up when you're playing. There's collectibles there if you want them. Your perks within the game also are related to the way you play. So, for example, if you're stealth killing people, you'll unlock perks in and around that kind of play style. I like the way that they explore BJ's backstory. I like the way the story was presented. I thought the pacing was just a little bit off in certain sections, but overall, it's made me pumped for Wolfenstein 3, which I never thought I'd say after playing The New Order.
Interesting. So it sounds like it's back on track.
Yeah. For me anyway.
Should our viewers buy it or bin it?
Fucking buy it.
Woo! Like we need like a little when that goes off, like little cheering sounds go off in the background. So what's its official Dimp grading?
I'm gonna go over silver. Wolfenstein 2, the new
right.
Colossus. There's a few things, like I said, of the story being a little bit strange, where it just jumps to certain pieces. Not getting a hand on it, pet peeve of mine. That's always gonna bother me slightly. It's a difficult game, but it's not a reason to knock it down. Actually, it's something that I should mention earlier on. It is quite a difficult game, but it's definitely an improvement for the way that, for my opinion, that I had of it beforehand. Because, like I said, binned the first one, bronze on the second. It's going in the right direction. So if we're following this trend, we should be looking at a gold for Wolfenstein 3, which is good for everyone. But overall, great action game. If you want to, if you like that, it's intense, it's funny, it's got some really strong things to say about society and things like that. So jump in. It's not without its faults, and just sit back here and have a good time with it.
Excellent, lovely. Well, don't think we've got any more to say other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
My brothers and sisters of the United States of America, tonight, we, the free people of the resistance, ask you to become one of us. Did you forget? They beat us. They murdered us. They executed us. But guess what? They fucked with the wrong country.
Come and fucking get me, you fascist Nazi pigs.
And if tonight we see you on the streets with a knife, or just your clenched fist fighting the powers that be, then you are one of us! burn!